Hello everybody, good morning, welcome back to the Yotso Tech Tracks YouTube channel. You're joining me on my driveway suspension lift kit install. Once again, this is a 2016 Ram 1500 truck. It's a half-ton crew cab, short bed, and a 5.7 liter V8 four-wheel drive. If you guys are following along on these series of videos, you guys know the details. If not, I'm gonna recoup once again. I just finished the front suspension lift install on this truck. Basically, this is between 2 to 4 inches of increased ride height from factory. My truck from the factory had a very low front end. It is four-wheel drive, but it was comparable to a two-wheel drive. Ground clearance and suspension height. I finished the front end. This is just a quick close-up of the details of the front. I will take some alignment measurement angles for steering and suspension components for you guys for later. I would like to see the drive shaft angles, the tie rod angles, and basically how much lower I am from factory. I have some before measurements, so I'm going to be comparing that to current. This is what the truck looks like. Ride height, the weight is on the front end. The back, I just came out a couple of minutes ago. I put some wooden blocks under the frame, and I have given myself enough room for the axle to travel downwards. The parts I'm going to be putting on are going to be much simpler, easier, quicker than the front end. Basically, I ordered these spacers. These measures between 2 and 2.5 inches height. It's about 2 1/4 from basically the bottom of this bracket to the top. What these are going to do is sit right on the spring perch right here, and the coil spring will sit on top of it, giving this height. These are advertised as 2 inches, but if you take a tape measure, they're slightly longer. So that is what it is. The one thing I want to show you guys, what I found online, is shock absorber extension brackets. Now these are for a 99 to 2017 Chevy GMC 1500 truck. However, I took some measurements from a truck I found at the dealership, and it seems to be the shock absorber eye, which goes here, is exactly the same as for the Rams. Now what these are going to do is situate the shock absorbers 2 inches higher, because right now, as you can see, well, you can not see, but the jack is not holding the axle. Actually, it is just positioned underneath. This is the full down travel of the suspension. Right now, the only thing that's keeping the axle from going lower is the shock absorber. That's the limiting factor. The top is going to be the bump stop. However, I'm going to be making my own extension brackets for the bump stop extensions. I'm putting this kit together myself, as you guys may or may not know from previous videos. I didn't want to shell out a whole bunch of money for a lift kit. A lot of these components I can piece together myself, which is one of the reasons I want to talk about these shock absorber brackets. These are the cheapest 2-inch brackets I found. From the center of this pin to the center of this one, it's 2 inches, giving it a 2 inches of height. Now the orientation of this bracket doesn't really matter. The shock absorber is round. You can spin this around once the bolt is coming out, and the bushing is going to give enough deflection when this axle goes up and down. This will want to slightly move within the bushings at the top, which is perfectly okay. Any truck can use these brackets if the parts fit. Now the reason I've gone with these, because they are much cheaper than what I found online designed for a Ram 1500. This suspension is pretty much the same as my Jeep I have. It dates all the way back to the Jeep ZJs from the 90s. I used to have one of those. This is just a solid axle, 5 links. There's 4 links holding it, and 1 panhard rod, which is this one, a lateral link, which is a 5-link suspension. It's all very similar design. This has longer arms than the original designs, and they get tweaked from vehicle to vehicle. For example, the Jeeps, right now the Gladiators, the 1500 trucks, even some of the 2500 trucks, and some of the 3500s, they have gone to a 5-link suspension. They're very similar to this. This one gives a lot of control for the manufacturers to locate the axle and to keep the axle from twisting, rotating, and giving a very nice smooth ride, as well as going with a coil spring suspension setup, which is always a very nice smooth ride for daily driving truck, which I appreciate actually. So these brackets are going to be put underneath the shock absorbers, and the brackets that go underneath, the spacers that go underneath the springs are going to be going underneath the coil springs and on top of the spring perch. Some of these designs go on top, however this one goes on the bottom. Does the same thing. One thing I wanted to add is the way I'm going to be installing this is I'm going to be removing the brake calipers and then putting the jack underneath the axle. I'm probably going to be doing this on each side, so one at a time. I'm going to be removing the anti-sway bar brackets, the sway bar end links, because I'm going to give the axle more room to articulate. And because I have these Firestone, I believe these are Firestone 1000 airbags that go within the coil springs, I don't want to actually put a coil spring compressor. I have one actually that I can put right on it, and I can jack up the axle, put the coil spring suspension compressor on it, and then compress the spring. It'll make it easier to put the spacer on it. However, I don't want to scuff or ruin these airbags because it's a sharp tool, so I removed the air pressure from these right now. I have no pressure in them, and as I said, shock absorber bolts are going to come out, sway bar end links, brake caliper, and then I'm going to lower the axle to give me room to put the spacer in. And from there, I'm just going to be installing those shock absorber extension brackets, and then move on to the other side. It's a very straightforward, simple procedure. This is something that can be done on the driveway. Make sure the vehicle is always supported properly. These are heavy-duty giant blocks. I haven't got around to the axle stand yet, but I'm going to position it right here underneath my trailer hitch, just in case. The safer the vehicle is, the safer you will be when you're working on these kind of things. The other side is exactly the same procedure, and very straightforward, very easy install. As in the front, you guys, if you're following along, I actually snapped off my bolts for my sway bar end links. I'm hoping these will have a, well, these won't break. They weren't cheap to replace, but parts break when you touch them actually, so that's just given to chance if you're going to reuse them or you have to buy new ones. Hopefully this will go very smoothly, easily. There's not much to this. It's a lot simpler than the front end of the suspension. The front has a lot of components, a lot of parts I had to replace compared to the rear. The rear only has parts that are going to be added on, not replaced. So all it is just a spacer lift underneath the coil spring and shock absorber extension brackets. I've already double checked, triple checked. These brake lines are going to be definitely long enough to give the axle room to move down without overextending the brake lines, so I have no worries about that. So by next video, I'm going to be showing you guys the result. Hopefully I can get this done really quickly. Again, it's going to be raining today. It rained all last night, so I couldn't come out, but today is my last day before I have to go back to work. So tune in for the next video and I'll show you guys how it looks when it's finished. So thanks for watching, take care, see you next time on the Yotso Tech Tracks YouTube channel.